Michelle exhaled deeply as the glass doors of the upscale hotel slid open, letting in the faint scent of citrus and polished wood. The evening sun cast a golden glow across the sleek marble floors of the lobby, giving everything an expensive, inviting warmth. She rolled her suitcase behind her heels clicking confidently. The long trip from Chicago had left her tired but restless, a mix that she knew too well. She had booked the hotel herself, something modern, quiet, not too crowded. It was supposed to be a simple 2-day business trip, just meetings, networking, and maybe some room service with a movie. That was the plan. But plans, Michelle had learned, rarely held. She stepped into the elevator, glancing briefly at her reflection in the mirrored panel. Her figure was as striking as ever. Tall and graceful, with a narrow waist and subtle but noticeable curves. Her breasts, firm and natural, filled the soft fabric of her fitted grey dress. Not provocatively, but enough to draw looks. She had always carried herself with a kind of casual elegance. Her long blonde hair framed her angular face, and her green eyes shimmered faintly beneath mascara and a neutral shimmer. Beneath her dress, she wore nude lace lingerie. Simple, delicate, and comfortable. Not because she expected anything to happen, but because it made her feel good. Confident, feminine. After unpacking, she kicked off her shoes and let herself collapse onto the king-size bed. She could already feel the tension building in her neck and shoulders from hours of travel and small talk. A hot shower helped. Then, standing in front of the mirror, wrapped in a towel, she paused. Should she stay in? Or go downstairs, maybe? Just for one drink? She chose a light wrap dress, slightly off-shoulder, showing just a hint of her collarbone and the smooth slope of her shoulders. Her perfume, something floral with a woodsy base, clung to her skin as she walked toward the elevator again. The hotel bar was dimly lit, lined with warm amber lights, with soft jazz playing somewhere in the background. It was almost empty. Perfect. Michelle found a seat at the far end of the counter and crossed her legs slowly, placing her small clutch on the bar. A moment later, a bartender approached. And not just any bartender. He was tall, perhaps 6'2", with tousled brown hair, dark eyes, and a day's worth of scruff across his jaw. His white shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, revealing strong forearms, and he wore a black apron slung low on his hips. "Evening," he said, smiling as he leaned toward her, elbows resting on the bar. "Let me guess. Something neat and classic." Michelle smiled back, intrigued. "That obvious?" "I've got a good eye." He offered his hand. "Jake." Michelle. Jake's gaze lingered on her lips just a moment too long before he turned to mix her drink. He moved with ease, confident, deliberate. When he placed the glass in front of her, their fingers brushed, just slightly. But she noticed. "So, what brings you here, Michelle?" he asked, pouring a second drink for himself. "Business," she replied, swirling her glass. "But not tonight." He grinned. "That sounds like an invitation." "Does it?" They spoke for nearly an hour. The kind of conversation that flirted with the line between playful and charged. Her laugh came easily with him, and his compliments, never crude, never forced, slipped into the space between them like smoke. When their fingers touched again on the bar, Jake's smile deepened. He leaned forward, his voice lower. Michelle met his eyes, pulse quickening. She knew she should pull away. She didn't. Instead, she leaned closer, their mouths now inches apart. His lips brushed against hers. Soft, testing, then deeper. His hand found her waist, his thumb tracing small circles along the fabric of her dress. Her breath caught when his fingers grazed the inside of her thigh beneath the bar, just enough to spark a shiver. It was heat without rush, desire without demand. Her fingers curled around the stem of her glass as his mouth traveled to her ear. "You taste like trouble," he whispered. She pulled away, gently, but with purpose, her heart racing. "I should go," she said. Jake tilted his head, not arguing, just observing. "Room number?" Michelle hesitated. Then she smiled. "Text me," she said, scribbling her number on a napkin with the hotel's pen. She left without looking back. In her room, Michelle slipped out of her dress and walked barefoot to the balcony. The night air was cool against her skin. She stood there for a long while, arms wrapped around herself, her phone silent on the nightstand. She did not sleep right away, and though she was alone in that bed, her dreams were anything but quiet. The morning sunlight crept through the sheer curtains, painting soft gold patterns across the hotel room floor. Michelle lay awake, gazing at the ceiling, her mind tracing every detail of the night before. She remembered the feeling of Jake's hand against her waist, the lingering warmth of his breath, the brief but electric touch of their lips. There was no regret, only a delicious swirl of anticipation and a pinch of guilt she chose to ignore. Michelle rose slowly, stretching out her lithe figure. The hotel's full-length mirror reflected her form. Tall, slim, with delicate curves and lightly tanned skin that seemed to glow in the morning light. Her blonde hair, slightly tousled from sleep, fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She chose a pale blue blouse and a fitted black skirt for the day. Businesslike, but flattering. Underneath, she wore a fresh set of wet lace lingerie, perfectly matching her skin's warm tone. She checked herself one last time, making sure every line and contour felt right. Her day was set to be busy. An early breakfast, followed by back-to-back meetings with the local branch of her company. Michelle's work as a marketing manager demanded constant attention. Yet her mind drifted back to Jake, to the bar, to the memory of that gentle, forbidden touch. At the conference room, Michelle was introduced to several local staff members and a few visiting executives. Among them was Riley, a man who seemed out of place in the corporate setting. He was in his early 30s, with deep brown eyes, sun-kissed skin, and hair the color of chestnut. Unlike the others, Riley's suit was more casual. His tie loose, his posture relaxed. There was something about his gaze, curious, almost knowing, that unsettled her, though he greeted her with only a polite nod. The meeting blurred into a parade of presentations, coffee breaks, and polite laughter. Michelle handled herself with poise, but she caught Riley watching her more than once, his expression difficult to read. By late afternoon, Michelle escaped back to her room, her head pounding lightly from the endless stream of information. She changed out of her work clothes, slipping into a soft beige dress, light and flowing, paired with matching heels. Her underwear was pastel pink this time, a favorite set that hugged her figure perfectly, with lace edging that traced her hips and accentuated her curves. The mirror reflected a woman who was tired but vibrant, her green eyes sparkling with hidden secrets. She debated staying in for the evening, perhaps ordering dinner to her room. But the memory of last night, the low lights of the bar, the feeling of anticipation, drew her downstairs once more. The bar was a little busier tonight, filled with the low hum of conversation and laughter. Michelle scanned the room as she entered, her heart racing slightly when she saw Jake behind the counter. He looked up the moment she walked in, his lips curling into a smile that seemed just for her. She took the same seat at the end of the bar, crossing her legs with easy confidence. Jake moved toward her, pouring her usual before she could ask. "Rough day?" he asked, eyes glinting. Michelle laughed, her voice softer than she intended. "You have no idea." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Maybe I could help with that." They talked for a while, about work, about travel, about nothing and everything. Each glance, each word, seemed loaded with meaning. Jake's hand found hers again, his thumb stroking slow circles against her skin. After a second drink, Michelle felt the electric charge build between them. Jake reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The world seemed to shrink until it was just the two of them, the dim bar lights, and the shared current of desire. He stood, offering her his hand. She took it, her own trembling with a mixture of nerves and excitement. Together, they made their way to the elevator, silent but utterly connected. In her room, the air felt charged. Jake closed the door behind them, locking it with a gentle click. He turned to her, his eyes dark and searching. Michelle felt suddenly shy, her body pulsing with anticipation. He moved slowly, closing the distance between them, his hands finding her waist, his mouth lowering to her neck. The softest kiss landed at the base of her throat, then another, trailing to her shoulder. Jake's hands slipped behind her, unzipping her dress, letting it fall to the floor in a whisper. Michelle stood before him in her delicate pink lingerie. Jake's breath caught, his eyes taking in every detail. The gentle curve of her breasts, the flat line of her stomach, the way her hips rounded perfectly into her thighs. He ran his fingers along the lace, tracing the path to her lower back. They moved together in unspoken rhythm, Jake's lips finding hers, their bodies pressing close, heat building as hands explored skin. Michelle's heart pounded as Jake lifted her effortlessly, setting her gently on the bed. He worshipped her with every touch, every kiss, never rushing, always attentive. Their lovemaking was a dance of want and wonder, slow, deliberate, yet charged with urgent need. Michelle felt herself surrender to the moment, letting desire wash away every thought but the one before her. She moaned softly as Jake's mouth found the sensitive spot behind her ear, his hands caressing her hips, his voice murmuring her name like a secret. When it was over, they lay together in the aftermath, skin glowing, breath mingling in the quiet room. Jake brushed his lips across her forehead, then whispered, "You have no idea how long I've waited for someone like you." Michelle felt her heart skip, a strange, fluttering sensation, as if his words carried a secret she could not name. They lay in silence for a while, the room filled with a peaceful kind of intimacy. Eventually, Jake rose, dressed, and left her with a lingering kiss and a promise to see her again. Alone, Michelle wrapped herself in the hotel robe and sat by the window, looking out at the city's distant lights. A strange sense of anticipation mixed with something else. Uncertainty, perhaps, or curiosity. She checked her phone, half hoping for a message, but found none. Instead, she noticed a business card Riley had handed her earlier in the day, slipped into her purse. She turned it over in her hand, feeling the weight of possibility in its glossy surface. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow would bring new questions, and maybe new answers. For now, she let herself remember Jake's touch, the taste of his kiss, and the way the night had opened up before her like a secret she could almost, but not quite, understand. Michelle was awoken by the sharp trill of her phone, the sound slicing through the soft pre-dawn hush of her hotel room. She groaned, rolling over, her bare shoulders slipping from the robe she'd worn to bed. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed with the time, 6:15. Far too early for work, or for anything pleasant. She squinted at the screen. An unknown number. Hesitating for a moment, she tapped to open the message. "He is not who he says he is. Be careful." Michelle stared at the words, her heart skipping in her chest. She read the message again, then a third time. There was no signature, no context, just that cryptic warning. Was it spam? A joke? Or something else? She set the phone aside, but the words clung to her. For a while she lay there in silence, tracing the events of the past 2 days in her mind. The bar, Jake's eyes on her, the heady intimacy, the strange things he'd whispered. "You have no idea how long I've waited for someone like you." A chill slid down her spine, unexpected and unwelcome. She forced herself to shower, letting the hot water ground her in the present. When she dressed, she took extra care. Black slacks and a silk blouse, the color of champagne. Her favorite set of red satin lingerie underneath. A secret, subtle armor that gave her confidence. She tied her blonde hair in a sleek ponytail, highlighting the elegant slope of her neck and the slight arch of her brows. Her reflection was composed, striking, but she saw the worry flickering behind her green eyes. Downstairs, the lobby was bustling. The hotel's restaurant was bright, filled with guests. Michelle sipped coffee in a corner booth, reviewing the agenda for her last meetings of the trip. She barely tasted her breakfast. The day passed in a blur. Numbers and presentations, polite handshakes, hollow smiles. She caught herself scanning the room for Riley more than once, half hoping, half fearing he'd approach her. But he was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't until lunch that she spotted him. Standing outside the conference center, phone to his ear, looking every bit as relaxed and unreadable as before. He caught her eye, smiled, and waved her over. "Michelle, right?" he said, ending his call. His gaze lingered, warm and a little mischievous. She nodded, her nerves prickling. "You look like you're hiding from something." "Not hiding," Riley replied with a laugh. "Just watching." "Watching what?" He didn't answer, only shrugged. "How's the trip so far?" Michelle hesitated, then decided to risk honesty. "Strange, busy. I got a weird text this morning, actually." Riley's face turned serious. "What kind of text?" She showed him her phone. He read the message, then looked at her with an intensity that startled her. "Who sent this?" "I have no idea. The number's blocked." Riley pocketed his phone, thinking, "Can I buy you lunch?" His tone was gentle, but there was a weight behind his words that made it clear this was more than a friendly gesture. At the cafe across the street, Riley chose a table by the window. Michelle ordered a salad, Riley a sandwich. Conversation drifted from work to travel, then back to the hotel. Riley asked casual questions, how she liked the bar, if she'd met anyone interesting. She tried to deflect, but his gaze was patient, unwavering. "Jake seems friendly," Riley remarked finally. Michelle blushed but said nothing. Riley leaned in, voice low. "I heard something about him. He's charming, but guests have complained before. Unwanted attention mostly. Sometimes things go missing." Michelle's stomach tightened. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying just be careful, Michelle. You never really know people here." Their food arrived, and the subject changed, but the unease lingered. When Riley excused himself, Michelle watched him walk away, wondering if she'd ever really known anyone at all. Back in her room, Michelle noticed something odd. Her suitcase, which she always left zipped by the wall, was partially open. A scarf she'd packed was draped across the bed, her favorite perfume uncapped on the nightstand. She was certain she'd left everything tidy that morning. A wave of panic rose in her chest. She quickly checked her belongings. Nothing obvious was missing. Still, the violation was clear. She paced the room, replaying the last 2 days. The message, Riley's warning, Jake's strange words. Paranoia gnawed at her, the boundaries between coincidence and intention blurring. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Jake. "Meet me tonight. I need to see you." She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the reply. Part of her wanted to go, wanted the heat, the thrill, the escape. But another part, colder and more rational, told her to run. Instead, she texted back a single word, maybe. As dusk fell, Michelle found herself wandering the hotel halls, restless. She passed a housekeeper in the hallway, a young woman named Maria whom she'd seen before. Maria paused, meeting Michelle's eyes with a knowing smile. Everything all right, miss? She asked, voice gentle. Michelle managed a weak smile. I'm not sure. Did you see anyone in my room today? After I left? Maria hesitated. No one except the regular staff, I think. But sometimes the night bartender gets guest keys for special deliveries. He's popular with some of the ladies. Michelle felt her heart pound harder. Jake? Maria shrugged, eyes darting away. People talk. Just be careful. The hotel bar was even more crowded that night. Michelle lingered in the shadows, watching Jake work. He moved behind the counter with his usual ease-grace, but now she saw something else, an edge to his charm, an intensity in his gaze. She noticed him slipping a small envelope to a woman at the bar, whispering something in her ear. The woman, tall, red-headed, with striking features and a confident posture, laughed and leaned closer. Her dress clung to her figure, accentuating a narrow waist and full hips. For a moment, Michelle felt a pang of jealousy. As if sensing her gaze, Jake looked up and caught Michelle's eye. He smiled, slow, inviting, and motioned her over. She hesitated, but curiosity pulled her in. Missed you, Jake said, voice low. He leaned in, his lips brushing her ear. Come with me, just for a little while. In the dim light of the bar's back room, Jake pressed her against the wall, his hands urgent but careful. Michelle gasped as his mouth found hers, hot and insistent, his fingers tracing the outline of her body through her blouse. She surrendered to the rush of desire, letting the thrill and fear mingle into something intoxicating. His hands slid beneath her blouse, fingers brushing her red satin bra, cupping her breasts with slow, deliberate movements. Michelle's head spun as he kissed her neck, his voice barely more than a whisper. You drive me crazy. She melted into him, the sensation of his touch clouding her doubts for a brief, beautiful moment. Their bodies pressed close, heartbeats racing, the world shrinking to just their skin and breath. When it ended, Jake smiled, brushing a thumb across her cheek. You're special, Michelle. I've been waiting a long time to find someone like you. The word struck her as odd. Again, that lingering sense of déjà vu. She returned to her room, her thoughts tangled, her skin tingling. The red-headed woman from the bar lingered in her mind. That night, as she tried to sleep, her phone buzzed once more. Another unknown number. You are not the only one. Michelle sat up, pulse pounding. She typed a reply. Who is this? But there was no answer. She stared at the dark ceiling, the words echoing through her mind. She was not the only one. The hotel room felt colder than before. Michelle sat at the edge of the bed, knees hugged to her chest, staring at her phone. The message, "You are not the only one," still glowed on the screen, unanswered. She scrolled up, rereading the earlier warnings. Each word seemed to pulse with threat and possibility. Her own reflection in the dark window looked like a ghost, half shadow, half frill. She hardly slept. When she did, her dreams were restless, shadows moving in the hallway, doors unlocking, Jake's hands, Riley's silent eyes. She woke before dawn, heart thudding, a thin sheen of sweat along her skin. I need to understand what's happening, she told herself. Standing and moving to the mirror, she dressed with purpose. A fitted white blouse and dark jeans that hugged her slender hips. Her favorite pale blue lingerie underneath. Modest, but beautiful. The lace tracing her curves. She pulled her hair into a neat braid, exposing the graceful line of her neck and jaw. Today, she would not be the vulnerable one. Downstairs, the lobby bustled with new arrivals and early travelers. Michelle scanned every face, searching for someone familiar. Friend or foe, she could not decide. After breakfast, she decided to look for Maria, the housekeeper. Michelle waited until she saw the cart in the hallway. Its neat stacks of towels and bottles. Maria was in the next room, changing sheets, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. When Michelle stepped inside, Maria startled, then smiled in recognition. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," Michelle said quietly. "It's all right," Maria replied, her voice gentle. "You're up early." Michelle glanced down the hallway, then lowered her voice. "I have to ask, do you know anything about Jake? Something isn't right." Maria hesitated, then leaned closer. "He's nice to some, but sometimes he's different. Charming, but sometimes I think he knows too much about guests. Where they stay, when they come and go. He gets keys from the front desk girls. And he changes his name. Last week he was Jason. Before that, James. He's always someone else." Michelle's blood ran cold. "Has anyone ever complained?" Maria glanced over her shoulder, lowering her voice even more. "Some women said he followed them. One lady last year. She left in the middle of the night, said she felt watched. But the hotel likes Jake. He brings in guests, he's good for business. Management ignores the rumors." Michelle thanked Maria, her mind whirring with worry. Every warning, every strange message, snapped into sharper focus. She remembered Jake's hands on her skin, the way he had said he'd been waiting for her, a phrase too practiced to be coincidence. At lunch, Michelle searched for Riley. She found him in the lobby, tapping away on his phone, coffee in hand. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "Rough night?" "You could say that." Michelle took a seat beside him. "I need to talk to you. Really talk." He set his phone aside, watching her closely. "What happened?" She hesitated, then told him everything. The messages, the strange feeling in her room, Maria's warnings. Riley listened, face unreadable, but his eyes darkened as she spoke. "I think someone's been in my room, and I think Jake's behind it." Riley nodded. "You're not the first. I've been investigating this hotel for months. There have been complaints, stalking, break-ins, even theft. Always women, always Jake, but he's slippery. The management covers for him." Michelle's breath caught. Who are you, Riley? You're not just another executive, are you? He smiled, but it was thin, tired. I'm a private investigator. A guest at this hotel hired me to look into the staff. She disappeared before I could help. But her family wants answers. Michelle shivered. And now me? Riley nodded. And now you. They sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the lobby fading. Finally, Michelle spoke. What do I do? Riley's eyes softened. Be careful. Act normal. If Jake tries to see you, go along with it. I'll be close. Michelle wanted to protest, but she could not argue. Every instinct told her she was in the middle of something bigger than a flirtation gone wrong. The afternoon was a haze. Michelle attended her last meetings, barely listening, her mind elsewhere. She noticed Jake in the lobby several times, watching her with a calm, confident smile. She forced herself to act normal, returning his gaze with practiced warmth. But inside, her thoughts were in turmoil. That evening, she dressed for dinner in a simple black dress, form-fitting, with an elegant neckline, hugging her body in all the right places. Her lingerie was a matching black set, lace and silk, understated but sensual. She wore her hair loose, blonde waves cascading over her shoulders, framing her striking face. As she made her way to the restaurant, her phone buzzed. Jake. Meet me at the rooftop bar. 9 o'clock. Just us. Michelle hesitated, then texted Riley, forwarding Jake's message. He replied instantly, I'll be nearby, don't let him know I'm involved. Her heart hammered as she rode the elevator to the top floor. The rooftop bar was nearly empty, the city's lights glittering far below. Jake stood by the glass railing, his silhouette sharp against the sky. He turned as she approached, his eyes lighting up with that familiar, dangerous charm. You came. Michelle forced a smile. Of course. Why wouldn't I? He stepped closer, his hand brushing her arm. You seemed distant today. Is something wrong? She shrugged, feigning nonchalance. Just tired. Business trips are exhausting. Jake leaned in, his lips nearly touching her ear. I could help you relax. His hands slid down her arms, settling at her waist. Michelle allowed herself to be drawn close, letting his lips trace her jaw, then her neck. The night air was cool on her bare skin, but Jake's touch was fire. He pressed her back against the railing, his body shielding her from the world. His hands slipped lower, tracing the curve of her hips, the fabric of her black dress rising under his touch. Michelle closed her eyes, letting the sensations flood her senses. Jake's lips found hers, hungry and searching. She responded, letting herself be carried by the heat, all the while knowing Riley was somewhere nearby, watching. The thrill was shot through with danger, every touch a careful dance between pleasure and fear. Jake's hands wandered, exploring, but she gently stopped him. He smiled, his breath warm against her cheek. Let's go somewhere more private. Michelle's pulse raced. Maybe later. I'm tired. Jake studied her, something flickering in his gaze, curiosity, suspicion, desire. Then he kissed her softly and stepped back. "You're different, Michelle. That's what I like about you." She left him at the rooftop, her hands trembling, the taste of his kiss lingering on her lips. In the elevator, she tried to calm herself, but her mind was spinning. Back in her room, Michelle locked the door, checked the windows, then called Riley. "He wants to see me again. He's getting suspicious," she whispered. "I know," Riley replied. "I saw you on the rooftop. I've got something. Security footage. Old guest lists. Jake isn't even his real name. He's been using new identities for years. Every few months, a woman files a complaint or leaves the hotel suddenly. Sometimes valuables disappear. Sometimes the women themselves vanish. No forwarding address, no trace." Michelle's voice shook. "Has anyone ever found them?" "Not yet. But you're not alone. We're close, Michelle. I promise." She hung up, feeling both safer and more terrified than ever. That night, a knock sounded at her door. Michelle froze, heart pounding. She looked through the peephole. It was Maria. She opened the door a crack. "Maria?" Maria glanced down the hallway, then handed Michelle a small slip of paper. "This was left at the desk for you." Michelle unfolded it. Inside, in neat, unfamiliar handwriting, was a single line. "Trust no one, not even him." She looked up, but Maria was already gone. Michelle sat in the silence, the city lights flickering outside her window, the mystery deepening all around her. She was caught in something she could not yet name, a secret that seemed to thicken with every answer. Tomorrow, she knew, something would have to break. The morning dawned grey and heavy. Michelle's sleep had been shallow, interrupted by the occasional tap of rain on the window and the restless tangle of her thoughts. She moved quietly through her routine, dressing with deliberate care, a simple dark green blouse that set off her eyes, slim black trousers, and underneath, ivory silk lingerie with lace trim that hugged her figure, offering a whisper of comfort and confidence. Her blonde hair was swept up, a few tendrils framing her face. She studied her reflection, strong, composed, but in her eyes a new resolve. She checked her phone. No new messages from Jake or Riley, but the mysterious note from the night before. Trust no one, not even him, felt like a stone in her pocket. It changed everything. Could she trust Riley? Was Jake the only one hiding secrets? Even Maria, so kind, could have her own motives. Michelle paced the room, watching the city wake beyond the rain-slicked glass. The answers would come soon. She could feel it. Her phone vibrated. A message from Riley. "Meet me in the lobby at 10. Don't talk to anyone. We have what we need." At exactly 10, Michelle descended to the lobby, her posture tall, her gaze steady. Riley waited near the entrance, dressed in a crisp navy suit, a seriousness to his eyes she had not seen before. "Ready?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Let's end this." He led her to a small conference room off the lobby, closing the door behind them. On the table lay a thick file and a USB drive. "I got the security footage," Riley said, voice low. "And guest logs. Enough to prove Jake has been using multiple names. Jason, James, even Liam. Some of these women..." He slid a folder across to Michelle. She scanned the pages. Faces, room numbers, complaint forms, and in some cases, police reports. Theft, harassment, missing items. One woman was still listed as missing. Michelle's throat tightened. "Are you going to the police?" Riley shook his head. "I already did. But they need more. A confrontation. Something on record." As if on cue, the door opened. Jake strode in, casual in dark jeans and a fitted white shirt. His confidence undimmed. His eyes darted between Riley and Michelle, suspicion tightening his features. "What's this?" Jake asked, glancing at the file. Michelle spoke first, her voice even. "Who are you, really, Jake? Or is it Jason? Or James?" Jake's smile slipped. "I think you're confused." Riley stood. "We know everything. Security footage, records, complaints. You're done." For a moment, Jake's face was blank, calculating. Then anger flared in his eyes. "You think anyone will believe you?" he said, voice sharp. "You think they care? The hotel needs me. The guests deserve to be safe." Michelle interrupted. Her hands trembled, but she held Jake's gaze. "You lied to me. To all of us." The conflict charged the air. Jake stepped closer, his presence suddenly intimidating. Michelle felt fear twist in her stomach, but she stood her ground. Riley moved between them, ready. Jake's lips curled in a sneer. "Maybe you should have minded your own business." Riley pulled out his phone. "You're not going anywhere. Hotel security is on their way. The police too." Jake lunged, but Riley was faster. In the scuffle, Jake's phone clattered to the ground, and a second later, 2 hotel security guards burst into the room. They restrained Jake, who struggled and shouted, his calm facade utterly broken. Michelle watched, breathless, as Jake's secrets finally shattered. The police arrived soon after, handcuffing Jake and reading him his rights. Riley handed over the evidence. Footage, files, messages. Hotel management arrived, faces pale, murmuring apologies and promises to improve security. A quiet chaos filled the lobby, but at its center, Michelle stood in the calm after the storm. Riley turned to her, his expression softer now, almost proud. "You did it. You helped stop him." Michelle managed a small smile, relief washing through her. "We did it." That afternoon, Michelle returned to her room to pack. The rain had stopped. Sunlight spilled across the bed, illuminating the remnants of her trip. The grey dress from the first night, the pale blue blouse, her favorite perfume. She folded each piece with care, her movements slow, thoughtful. She found herself thinking of Jake, of the charm, the danger, the thrill. It felt distant now, like a story she had read rather than lived. The fear lingered, but so did something else. Pride in her own courage, a new sense of strength. A knock sounded at the door. She opened it to find Maria standing there, hands clasped, eyes wide. "I hear what happened," Maria said softly. "Thank you for not letting it go." Michelle smiled. "Thank you, Maria, for helping me see the truth." Maria hugged her, quick and warm, then hurried away down the hall. With her suitcase packed, Michelle checked out at the front desk. The staff were unusually polite, apologizing again for the trouble. She saw Riley in the lobby, waiting. He offered to call her a cab, and as they stood together, she looked at him. Really looked. "Will you be all right?" he asked. "I think so," she said. "What about you?" He smiled, a little sad, a little hopeful. "Still work to do. Always someone else who needs help." They shared a quiet moment. Then Michelle reached out, squeezing his hand. "If you ever need anything, call me," she said, writing her number on a slip of paper. He took it, tucking it into his pocket. "I will." On the way to the airport, Michelle gazed out the window, watching the city recede. The storm was over, but her world was forever changed. She thought about her husband, about what she would say, and what she would keep to herself. Some secrets were hers alone. Back home, the routine resumed. Familiar streets, the comfort of her own bed. She didn't mention Jake or Riley or what had happened in the hotel. The silence felt protective, even empowering. A week later, an email appeared in her inbox. The subject line was blank. Inside was a single sentence. "Sometimes courage is simply saying no." Below it was a photo. Riley, somewhere new, the same half smile on his lips. Michelle smiled, closing her laptop. She walked to the window, letting the sunlight warm her face. She was changed, but she was still herself. Strong, beautiful, and for the first time in a long while, at peace.